Catalina, and we're matching today, Pierre. Look at this. We're both got the black hoodie on. You know, we did not coordinate this. I just want to say.
Matches our black hearts.
Yes, absolutely. Pierre Nugent, who had strep throat last week, which is nearly a fate worse than death. So
it's awful. It's awful. Believe it or not, this is the fourth or fifth time I've had this in my entire lifetime, and this felt almost as bad, if not equally as bad, as when I got my tonsils taken out 7 years ago. And at this point, Paul, I'd like the opportunity to call out that quack doctor who took out my tonsils, who after the surgery told me, "Congratulations, you'll never have a sore throat ever again in your life." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And what happens? I'm down for the count last week.
I had my tonsils out when I was 7 years old. Okay?
Yeah, that's the time to do it.
Right before the second grade.
Yeah.
I've had many a sore throat in the near 40 years since then.
Yeah.
And I've had strep throat a few times. Like,
it's awful.
You'll never get that's a lie. You'll never get a sore throat because of these again, but you'll still get sore throats. Look, I've lost my voice many a time in my life through colds or coughs, or one time when I was in college, FSU lost to Miami in the bottom of the ninth inning in the College World Series final, and I just yelled into the void for like an indeterminate amount of time until I couldn't talk for 48 hours.
Right.
So, that had nothing to do with my tonsils. They were long gone.
I may have misunderstood the doctor as well, because I was on a lot of pain medication coming out of that surgery, so it was a little bit fuzzy. But you said that you had yours taken out when you were in second grade. Mm-hmm. I had mine out when I was 33 years old.
Yeah.
And if anybody at home watching right now, if you're an adult and you're getting your tonsils out, here is my advice to you. Take all of the recommended medication and more after surgery. Just down it. Take all the medication. I made a fatal mistake of not doing that, and I was in pain for a full week. So take all the medication you can.
Yeah. Pierre, we have a breaking news story to get to in a second, but I do want to say this about the tonsils. My biggest memory from it is back in 1987 or 8, whenever it was. So 7 or 8 years old. So whenever that was, it was it was right at the end of the summer before I started second grade. I had to stay in the hospital overnight, which for a little kid is terrifying. It was absolutely, I had 400 nightmares. Like, waking up, have another nightmare. Like, I was convinced, crazy things were going on in that hospital. I know my mom was sleeping, right there. My dad wanted to sleep there, but he snored like a howitzer. So it was no, I don't care. Please go home. And I had a little sister at the time too. She was little, almost 1 year old. So, I guess that would have been the bigger reason. But one of us okay, you take care of the little one who sleeps through a bomb, and she'll stay here, because she was at the time a nurse too. So she was way more valuable than he was. And I, I'm sure he's looking down going well, the hell with you. But school was like 6 days later. And so for the first 2 weeks of school, because you know how long it takes to really heal.
Oh, yeah.
And that was in the 80s, where it took probably even longer, because it wasn't outpatient surgery. It was, there were no lasers involved. It was an actual knife, So I had to drink grape juice twice a day, a little juice box. And I did drink grape juice twice a day during school, and I really couldn't eat much. It was, there's only soft, cold things. You can't, anything that's above room temperature is just going to kill you. Yeah. And so I would get this juice box in the middle of the day, and this is how different things were in the 80s. In the 80s, especially in Catholic school, they wouldn't let you, have water or drink anything in class. No. That was a lack of discipline. Now kids have water. You got to make sure kids are hydrated, get water bottles and everything. But everyone's oh, how does he get to have grape juice? And I'm look, first of all, one, As much as it feels good at the tip of my mouth, like the minute it hits the throat, it feels like I'm drinking gravel. Like that's what it felt like. So I'm like sitting there in class trying not to cry, drinking a grape juice and be a tough guy. And then my friends are like, hey man, sneak me one of them Welch's. Come on. You know you want to. No, I need these for my throat. My mom will get mad.
Yeah.
So yeah. Come on, man. We're best friends. Are we?
Yeah.
Are we, Greg?
Where were you when I was getting my tonsils out? Were you there by my bed? I didn't see you anywhere.
No, you were not. Shut up about it, Greg, or I'll tell everybody of the bedwetting.
That's right. Exactly.
So, but Inside Carolina is reporting that UNC is, in fact, finalizing the deal for Bill Belichick to be the new head coach there at North Carolina. Look, I am all for big swings. I mean, like, look, I'm all for, fortune favors the bold and all of that. This is a very, very big swing that if the report, and I have no reason to believe that they're not, that he's given them this 400-page how-to manual about how he wants the department set up, how much money is going to be outlaid to positions and coaches, and that there's going to be a recruiting staff and a coaching staff, which I think eventually will be the way that everybody is going to have to do this because of the way the world works. It's going to have to be more like pro sports because you'll have to have a GM that has a general manager's department with scouts and recruiters, and you'll have to have a coach who can coach. But the difficult gap to bridge is going to be these are not 22, 23-year-old kids and older. These are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who are coming in. So the relationship with the coaches matter maybe a little bit more than on a professional sense. And Pierre, you cover both college and pro sports on a daily basis. And I think of all the people we could have in the show to talk about this week, you're uniquely positioned to talk about Kevin O'Connell's relationship with his players to PJ Fleck's relationship with his players. It is similar, but not exactly the same. It's a different dynamic. Do you think Bill Belichick can bridge this gap at North Carolina and make it kind of the hybrid thing? Because this is a different world that he is stepping into that he has not been in since he took a job with the Baltimore Colts, not the Indianapolis Colts, the Baltimore Colts, in I believe 1975. So he's not been in college for a half a century. Now, if anybody can figure out, it's probably him, but this is not, I would not call this a home run. I would call it a big swing, and we're waiting to see if it carries out of the ballpark slowly.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a fair way to look at it too. And for the life of me, I can't figure out who this makes less sense for. Does it make less sense for Bill Belichick, or does it make less sense for the University of North Carolina? Because if you're the Tar Heel program, you got to be thinking to yourself, and this is why we all thought that they were parting ways with Mack Brown, is that we thought that they would go younger and that we thought they would find somebody who would be there for the long haul to help build that program and mold it into something that could carry on for the next 10, 15 years. Bill Belichick is 72 years old. Now, that's not to say that he's still not capable of being a great football coach, but in an environment of college athletics, and given the state of what college athletics has turned into with the NIL, and you still have the recruiting trail, which is not probably a long trail a 72-year-old would want to take part in. I know he's not going to go on every single trip. I fully understand that. But I can't figure out who's benefiting more in this situation. And bear in mind, for me, the shocker of it all to me is when you think about it, Bill Belichick is only 26 wins away from tying, 27 wins away from surpassing Don Shula for all time on the head coaching wins list in the National Football League. He's accomplished everything you possibly can in the league. That would be the last thing for him to accomplish. And even though I just said he's 72 years old, by no means, Paul, do I think that the game has passed him by. I have no reason to believe that the game has passed him by at the pro level. He just didn't have the talent the last couple of years. in New England. It happens. It happens to every single coach. So I, for the life, cannot understand why Bill Belichick would want to undertake this type of task. And as you mentioned, has no experience at the collegiate level. And it is an absolute jungle out there in college football right now. I can't understand why he would do this. It's a different level of athlete that you have to relate to, like you were alluding to. Can he do that? I'm going to refrain from commenting on his personal life. That makes me think that maybe he could. But
look, I'll comment on all you want. I said it during the show yesterday. Smokey brought up the fact that, like, I don't know if this guy can talk to people in that age demographic. I went, listen, the thing he's doing right now is hard to getting a kid to come play quarterback for you. So I'll just tell you, I mean, right now, maybe we don't know the skills that Bill Belichick has.
Yeah, you're not wrong there at all. I'm not sure what Bill is getting out of this experience, and I'm not really sure how North Carolina is. I'm not sure what their thought process is in terms of molding a program to go into the future.
Yeah, no, I don't know either. And here's the thing: is he disinterested in the NFL, or is the NFL disinterested in him?
I think it's the latter.
I think the NFL is a little disinterested in him because why? What job is he going to get? Now, I think part of the reason he might have jumped into this now is I think the job he wanted, because to get those 27 wins, you're talking about 2 to 3 good seasons, right?
Yeah.
So you need, 11, 12 wins, I mean, because it's
at least in 2 seasons.
In 2 seasons, so you sure. So you need to go 13-4 in 2 seasons, right? And then a third season. So you're talking 3 seasons to reasonably get that done. If you're just 1 game over 500, you could do it in 3 seasons. But what jobs are going to be open that will allow him to do that in a short amount of time? I think the one he was hoping for was Philadelphia, because there was a thought that Philadelphia would move on from Nick Sirianni because he's even too rude for Philly. Like he's right. That, which is a weird thing to say because it's the most ironically named city in the world, the city of brotherly love, when if you've ever been to Philly, there's some awesome dudes in Philly. I've had a blast when I've been in Philly. I did stand-up comedy there, 20 years ago, and I've been back since, but only once. And every time I've had a good time. But I will tell you that I went to Gino's Steaks, and there were some guys. They were playing. It was in December. They were playing the Cowboys that weekend. And here I am, a Cowboys fan in Philadelphia. Not a really, really smart thing to be. Right. And so I'm at Gino's, and both teams were kind of mediocre. The Eagles had Donovan McNabb, but they were a little bit better. But neither team was really that great. It was 2003. So the Eagles were probably better. I knew they were going to win, but the guys were kind of talking trash about the Cowboys. So I'm about to say something, and my dad's best friend who lived up there, and I was there with me at the restaurant. The guy's like, yeah, the Cowboys, they're awful, they're worse than the dirt, on the floor here, they're terrible. The Cowboys are garbage, and I was like, oh, I got to talk a little sports trash with this guy. That's what I'm going to do. He literally grabbed my arm and squeezed it like this, like my wife does now when she knows I'm about to say something she doesn't want me to. And then I was like, okay, so I'm not going to say anything. And he's like, hey, I could hear the thoughts coming out of your brain about you. He's like, this is not South Philly, 9th and Passyunk is not the place to have this discussion. Do you want something in that sandwich? They do. You can call, if you called the Board of Health and said, this guy put his junk in my sandwich and made me watch it, and he'd be like, why'd you do that? It's like, he's a Cowboys fan. Oh, here, let me put my junk in it too. Yeah,
exactly.
Hold on. You sit there. Tommy, hold him down. I mean, that's what would happen. Right. That's the rule. It's a city code in Philadelphia. Yeah, you can. Yeah, we got to be clean for everybody else, for the Eagles fans and the Phillies fans, but for you dirty, disgusting Cowboys fans, I'll get a line of people here to just to do this. Doubt. So yeah, so I think that was the job he wanted. I don't think Philadelphia can fire Nick Sirianni because they're good. They're really good. They're contenders. So unless he makes Jeff Lurie so mad. Which Jeff Lurie's not that dude. Jeff Lurie's the kind of like, he's the anti-Jerry Jones where it's like, hey, I got smart guys here doing things. So what if my coach, the fans don't really like him? They don't like anything. You know, they threw batteries at Santa. Like, let's not forget who we are. So since Belichick, that job's not open. I wouldn't right now, as much as I said, Jerry can sell anybody anything. I would not want the Cowboys head job if I'm Bill Belichick.
Yeah. No, and I agree. There's 3 jobs out there right now that I can think of that Bill would probably look at and think to himself, probably not. And even though as much as I'm sure he would love to coach the New York Giants, as much as he would love to go back to New York and coach the New York Giants if that job came open, what's he going to – it's a rebuilding process. Same thing in New Orleans. New Orleans is undergoing a rebuilding process. The only other job that I think would be interesting for him would be Chicago. I think that you have the number 1 overall pick. Bill knows how to build a defense. Lord knows Chicago could use a little help in that right now. So Chicago, I thought would be an interesting spot for Bill, but you're right. There's nothing out there right now where I would have to imagine Bill Belichick is looking at and thinking to himself, I've got to be here. I've got to be here. I need this job, right? There's got to be a right place and a right time, and I don't think there's neither for that right now for Bill in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I don't think there is, and I wonder, how this will work out. But look, I'm here to learn. I'm here to watch. There's going to be a lot of people that pontificate and do that today, but like, there's no way that Bill Belichick can, like, okay. Who's going to be his Tom Brady? He's going to leave every 3 years. Like, it's not the same. He wouldn't have done anything. All right, let me stop you right there. Just see what happens. The man is the most brilliant professional football coach that's ever lived. Okay? He is next level genius. And everybody who played for him, including Tom Brady, will tell you that. In fact, they're cool now. They just got to a point where they got tired of each other. It happens. Yeah. It happens. Hall and Oates won't talk now. Doesn't mean they're not great together. So, but yeah, it just, I'm sure Oates is like, look, I don't need him. And Hall's like, I don't need Oates. And they're like, yeah, you guys kind of do, and then, like Tom Brady goes off, has to hit without him. See, I told you, but then his career's over. So, he proved one slight thing, but I'm very curious to see what all the parameters are, what they're going to do, how they're going to build this. If it works, how people are going to respond to it, and how much it actually costs. Because the cost for Bill Belichick per year is one thing, but the cost for what he's asking is a completely different thing. And we didn't even know with the House settlement, there's been some slight adjustments. Like just yesterday, the judge said, okay, well, or that the plaintiffs asked the judge to rule on creating some sort of third-party advocate for the plaintiffs to help with these NIL things and all of that, to kind of get out ahead of whatever legislation may or may not be coming. And we're going to talk about Congress later in the show, because 2 things happened within a 24-hour period that sent me into a blind rage. And I'm going to say some things that I don't really care. I don't really care how people react. I just don't. Yeah. I've got to get them out. I'm just here to tell you that all that uncertainty, you've brought in a guy who already probably knows all the rules already because he just spends his free time doing these things. Like, he's got 3 things to do: media appearances, entertain a 23-year-old bimbo, and read about football and study football. Like, that's his life, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see, like, here's the thing. His kids are grown. It's not like he's got to take Steve to the water park on the, you know? he don't have to worry about that. You know, occasionally I'm sure you'll see the grandkids, but, you know, they know who Grandpa is. He's Bill Belichick, you know?
To be honest with you, I'm actually more curious about what staff he's going to put together. Well, I want to see the names that are going to be on the staff that's going to be joining him. Is he going to send LT out on the recruiting trail to get people to go to North Carolina? I'm sure that's a quick phone call he can make. But I'm curious to see what kind of staff he puts together as well and who joins that staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. You know what? I do have to say this before we go to the next segment. This is not related anywhere, but you and I talk about baseball from time to time.
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure out your team, which right now the leader in the clubhouse is the Padres.
It is, but I would tell you for right now, the only baseball I will be watching, it'll be my favorite team, and that's the Hanshin Tigers of the Japanese Baseball League. So that I'll be up in the middle of the night because I bought myself a Hanshin Tigers hat in Osaka when I was there earlier in the year. That right now is my team for right now because MLB can do some things that I can't say on the air right now.
I mean, you can say them on this show. I don't have a problem with it. If your employers see it, they might get mad. So
correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't have. You can say whatever you want here.
I want to keep up the good habits that I've built in broadcasting because the moment I let it slip, I may let it fly somewhere else where I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, I would worry about you like on the air tonight. Be like, well, Carl Anthony Towns returned to Minneapolis tonight and dropped 45 points. Good effing trade.
Yeah. You know that's on the tip of my tongue too.
Yeah. Good job, Wolves.
Yeah.
You know. Way to go.
Burn bridges wherever I go.
Yeah. Sam Darnold's going to get a big contract. You drafted another guy, idiots.
I asked the question actually on our podcast. I asked the question, is Sam Darnold a franchise quarterback? And you wouldn't believe the backlash in the comment section that I got during this podcast. Just bringing up the question. It's amazing to me the train of thought people have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, all that being said, the Red Sox actually did something today that I approve of. They traded 4 prospects, one of whom is their first-round pick from this year, Braden Montgomery from Texas A&M. But Kyle Teal, Chase Medroth, and Wickelman Gonzalez to the Chicago White Sox for left-handed ace Garrett Crochet. So I am buoyed by a sense that my team actually gives a crap about me, because if you've been of me in 2020, late in the last 12 months, since December 5th of last year, so the last 12 months, I've watched FSU get absolutely screwed out of the playoff.
Yep.
Then the momentum of that sent them straight through like a dumpster toilet hellscape of a season. The Red Sox are stuck in a wheel of mediocrity.
Yep.
The Cowboys, this is the worst they've been in a long, and I can't tell you, in over a decade, maybe 20 years, since the Dave Campo era, where I look at this team and I have no idea what the future is. And Jerry Jones has finally started to really be 80 years old. Like, it's really showing here. And the only thing as a sports fan I have to cling to is that in a couple years, because Wemby is with the Spurs, they're going to be lethal. But I still have to wait on that because he's 19 years old or whatever he is, you know? So I still have to wait a little while on that. So that's only I do know that this is going to happen eventually. I just have to wait. And
can I just say one thing on Victor Wembanyama just real quick since you brought him up? In the history, in all my years of watching the NBA, and it's extensive, it's probably the league that I have followed the closest over the entire course of my life. I'm going to say something about him that I've never said about any other player, including Michael Jordan. But I mean it when I say it. I have never seen a player that instills fear into my heart when I see him play, because when I watch him play, I think to myself, heaven help the 31 other teams in this league, because it's over for you. It's absolutely over for all of you. And this man is going to dominate this league for the next 10 to 15 years, and it's going to be frightening. The only thing that's going to slow him down is injury. He strikes fear into my heart because there's no stopping him.
Yeah, I've never seen an athlete that's built like him move like him.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It's not just that he can shoot. Like Dirk could shoot, right? Dirk, one of the all-time greats. Dirk was not quite that tall, but Dirk was tall and could shoot. But he couldn't move like that. No. There are guys who can move like that but couldn't shoot. Yeah. He can do all this stuff, and not even really move like that, but like he can do all these things, and he's not like a big clumsy dude.
Have you ever? And you watch him handle the ball. He can put the ball between his legs like he's a point guard. It's absolutely terrifying. It's terrifying.
He's graceful.
Yes.
He's great. Like most tall guys are not graceful.
Yeah.
Garnett was probably the closest, I would say. Like Garnett could do it. A couple other guys, but like there's even some bull in a china shop with guys like Garnett. That's not Wemby at all.
No, it's not. And you can't have a little grace, Paul. As you know, Elaine Benson tell you, you either have grace or you
don't have grace.
Or you don't have grace. And Wemby has plenty of grace on the basketball court. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I'd like to think that I have some grace.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Grace.
You either have grace or you don't.
Or you don't.
Yes. We learned this from Elaine Bennis.
Yeah. I don't have grace. I don't even say grace. Okay. Like,